And a good poet should avoid elaborate diction in poetry. That is, a good poet should not have artificiality in his writings. And for that, he should use the common language of people. And so these are the signs of a good poet according to Wordsworth. Say, who is a poet? A poet is a man speaking to men. And the poet is one who is endowed with a greater sensibility and greater sensitivity than the ordinary people. He should have an excellent memory. Whatever comes to his mind will remain there for a long period until it is expressed in writing. And so a good poet is a man with powerful emotions. Then he can sustain the mood of tranquility and peace, and thereby he can make ordinary things unusually beautiful. And he should bring everything together with love and passion. And even if he can feel absent pleasure, meaning he can perceive beauty even in things where an ordinary man cannot see any beauty. Or when ordinary things are presented by a good poet, a talented poet, they will become unusually beautiful. And a good poet should avoid elaborate diction in poetry. And so he should use the common language of the people. Wordsworth's object in writing poetry was to console the suffering. When Wordsworth presents a poet before the reader, he says that there should be an objective in his writing. What should be the main aim of a good poet? He should console the suffering. He should be a spokesman for the suffering people around him. He should make the happy people happier. Okay, he should make the happy people happier. And Wordsworth says that it is like adding sunshine to daylight. Okay, that is the phrase that is used. And so what is the duty of a poet? It is his prime objective of a good writer is to console the suffering. Then to make the happy happier. The happy people should be made more happy by reading poems. That is like adding sunshine to daylight. Then he should enable the young and the old to see, to think, and to feel. Everybody should feel and see what is presented by the poet. He draws the conclusion that every poet is a good teacher. In this respect, Wordsworth's theory has much in common with that of Plato. Unlike Plato, Wordsworth also believes that a good poet should be a good teacher also. What should he do? He should be the spokesman of the suffering people around him. He should console the suffering. He should make the happy people happier. He should enable the young and the old to think, to see, and to feel. And so these are the duties assigned to a poet by Wordsworth. I hope you have understood what is the definition of a poet by Wordsworth and what are the qualities of a good poet. And then in the poetic process, according to Wordsworth, see the main points I repeat again. A good poet should have a powerful vision and he should penetrate deep into things, or he should be a good observer of life. And so observation is the first step. And so what are the 4 stages of poetic process according to Wordsworth as presented in the preface? That is observation. A good poet should be a good observer of life. Then, and whatever he see, whatever he observes, he should not forget it. It should be recollected. It should be collected in his mind. And then he should contemplate over it. Whatever that is recollected should be contemplated over. And that will lead to imaginative excitement. And the excited mind of the poet will be relieved only when he composes the poem. And so these are the 4 steps of the poetic process. See, in the preface, Wordsworth explains all these things. We are going to the main points right from the beginning, but this is by way of introduction. I am explaining to you what are the important points that Wordsworth stresses in the preface. After that, we will go to the first part of the essay. Why Wordsworth attached a preface to the lyrical ballads and so on. But you should not miss the main points. That is why I am repeating it. And so, what are the 4 steps in the poetic process according to Wordsworth? Observation. That is, a good poet should be a good observer of life. And so observation is the first part. And what the poet observes should be recollected in his mind. Understood? And so recollection is the second step of the poetic process. Observation first step, then recollection. The third step is contemplation. The poet should think and think, contemplate over what he has recollected in his mind. And that will lead to the imaginative excitement. And the excited mind of the poet will be relieved only when he presents the poem in writing. And so these are the 4 steps of the poetic process. Observation, recollection, contemplation, and imaginative excitement. Imaginative excitement finally leads to the composition of the poem. And so these are some of the important points that are discussed in the essay. Before going to the first part, some more points about the poet. See, we will sum up the points of Wordsworth about the poet. A poet is endowed with more lively sensibility. His senses are keen and sharp. A greater sensibility and greater sensitivity. It is his mark. He can see with his inward eye what a common man cannot with his worldly eye see. And see, what should be the qualities of the good poet? He is endowed with more lively sensibility. Okay, his senses are keen and sharp. He is endowed with greater sensibility and sensitivity. I told you I am repeating the points to make things clear. Then he can see with his inward eye. The poet, highly imaginative, with his inner eyes he can see what the common man cannot see with his worldly eyes. He can hear strange sounds of strange lands and has a strong organic sensibility and a great urge to create. The poet, a good poet, can see things which ordinary people cannot see. They can hear things which ordinary people cannot hear. Being a sensitive man, a poet feels and thinks more quickly than the others and is eager to express as clearly, lucidly and quickly as he can. He can do it in no form other than the verse. Wordsworth saw a rainbow in the sky and composed a poem. That is, ordinary things in life are subjects of poetry. When Wordsworth saw a rainbow in the sky, he was able to compose a beautiful poem over it. When he found the daffodils dancing in the margin of a lake, he was able to write a beautiful poem titled Daffodils. He heard cuckoo song, he was able to write a poem. And on all such occasions, He composed songs with the help of his imaginative faculty, and those songs live in the hearts of men, giving pleasure and information. And so, poet is endowed with greater sensibility and sensitivity. And he can see things which ordinary people cannot see. He can hear things which ordinary people cannot hear. And the ordinary things, when a good writer witnesses ordinary things, he is prompted to write beautiful poems over it. For example, when Wordsworth saw the rainbow in the sky, he was so fascinated by the beauty of the rainbow, and that made him compose a beautiful poem. And when he saw the daffodils dancing in the margin of a lake, he was able to compose a beautiful poem titled Daffodils. And when he heard the cuckoo's song, he was prompted to write a song. And so, from all these ordinary things, the poet derives extreme pleasure. And by composing these poems, we, the reading community, we also receive this pleasure and information. And now, we were discussing what is the content of the preface to the lyrical ballads. The preface is very, very important. It is not an ordinary preface or an introduction. It contains Wordsworth's philosophy on poetry. And so, when you begin reading the preface, here, see, I told you that this is counted as the manifesto of Romanticism in English.